Mine. Kindness, humility, empathy. It's not just talk, it's who we are. It's who we always have been. And no one can take that from us. The movement to bring it back, it started here. And here. And here. In school gymnasiums, community centers, the living room down the block. You'll be where? Okay, we'll be there. Who are we? We're the movement that will beat Donald Trump. Welcome. We're going to have to sweat for it. We're going to have to sacrifice and fight. We're going to have to lead. Everyone is going to have to lead with kindness, humility, empathy, and not just talk, but action. Action today, action tomorrow. Action until we win. And we will win if we do this together. It's who we are. It's who we always have been. Now let's show them.
Welcome to this Biden-Harris campaign event. Maine Seniors for Biden-Harris Get Out the Vote rally. Please welcome Maine humorist Tim Sample.
Welcome, everybody. We're really, you're talking to seeing the least technical guy in Maine all out for Biden-Harris. We have a terrific lineup today. We're going to kick things off. This is the last few days of this campaign, and we're going all out. So we're going to start things off with Heather Booth, who has a bio as long as my arm, but has been working for civil rights and human rights and women's rights in the political and social realm for better part of 5 decades. So Heather, would you take it away?
Thanks so much, Tim. It is a joy to be with you in Maine. And I've been waiting to hear you, Tim, because we need some good humor and good stuff. We need something to rev up our spirits as we move into these last days for victory on November 3rd.
So Heather, I just want to start off by asking you, in what ways, specific ways, has the Trump administration failed seniors? Here in Maine, we have a lot of seniors. I'm certainly one of them. They're well represented here. But what has the Trump administration failed to do, and what is Biden-Harris going to bring to the table?
Before I say that, I did want to thank just the other people also on this program, because John Bowzer Bouman is one of my great heroes. He's almost like a Superman without a cape, running around the country, helping move the senior vote, as well as Noel Paul Stookey, who has been an inspiration since the days of Peter, Paul, and Mary. And I wanted to also thank Paige Nygaard, the coalition's director in Maine, for the Biden-Harris campaign, who's just a juggernaut. You've got a great team there. However, the Trump operation has been horrific for seniors. In fact, even today, there's stories in the paper saying that because the mismanagement of this coronavirus crisis, the pandemic, there's such an overflow of people in hospitals and needing care without adequate supplies that they will make determinations based on the likelihood of longevity. And that means that he's sacrificing seniors. So he thinks we're expendable. And it's that. It's also that our source of income, Social Security. Trump has said that he will eliminate payroll taxes, which is the designated stream that funds Social Security. And it's the system that lifted seniors out of poverty. And if he succeeds, Social Security will be bankrupt in 3 years. Joe Biden will expand Social Security, not only protect it, but expand it. And the Biden-Harris agenda is bold and expansive with real priorities, regardless of our age. And that goes for prescription drug coverage. It goes for how people are treated in nursing homes and in long-term care support. And so the Biden-Harris ticket actually cares about senior citizens. It's not just words, lies, and fake news.
Thank you, Heather. I couldn't agree more. And John, you've You've really had a long history of working with seniors' rights and access to the appropriate care. Can you talk a little bit about this? What's at stake this time around, and what's going to be decided in the coming days for our seniors and seniors around the country?
There has never been more at stake, Tim. And that is why seniors in Maine and seniors around the country are moving towards Joe Biden, have moved towards Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Yes, we have to turn poll numbers into votes, but let's not ignore those poll numbers completely.
Right.
Every poll is showing that seniors are flocking to Biden and Harris, and no wonder, because when an administration, as Heather said, indicates to us, I'm 73, that it doesn't really care whether we live or die, and that in fact some of us, should just sacrifice ourselves to the economy. Not sure what that means, because there really can't be an economy until COVID is handled, and this administration isn't bothering to do that. But we are apparently supposed to sacrifice ourselves to the economy in order for Donald Trump to get reelected. Well, not surprisingly, that's not going over very well with older Americans. And then on top of that, there's this palpable threat to Social Security, where Donald Trump literally promised to terminate, his word, not ours, the dedicated funding of Social Security, FICA or the payroll tax, same thing, if he got a second term. That would, according to, just to flesh out what Heather said a little bit more, according to Stephen Goss, the chief actuary of Social Security. So we are not making this up. Stephen Goss wrote a letter to 4 senators who asked him this question, and he confirmed that Social Security would be out of money by 2023 if Donald Trump were to defer and defer and defer the payroll tax, as he has said he wants to do. Disability insurance, which affects many Mainers as well, and is a critical part of Social Security, would be out of funds by 2021. So not only, in other words, is the Trump administration threatening our health and our very lives, but it's also trying to steal our money, and we need to resist that. Remember that Social Security and Medicare is your money. It's no one else's.
Yeah, this is not, it's an ironic thing that people talk about entitlement. You're entitled to it because you paid into it. That's why it's an entitlement, because you deserve it. Thank you very much. We'll be coming back to you. I want to get Noel Stookey in here. Noel, you and I have known one another for a long time. And of course, your deep commitment to civil rights and human rights goes back. I have that picture in my office of Peter, Paul, and Mary in 1963 at the March on Washington. So talk a little bit about why you're here today, what's going on today, and what's at stake in your perspective.
Well, Tim, you know, compassion is not Trump's strong suit. And that's always been a mark of the civil rights, human rights movement. It's always been the hallmark of folk music in general, because it reminds us how deeply our community is felt and how important it is. So I'm just a musician, you know. Of course, I encourage people. I just wish I could cross more lines. You know, I wish I could speak to those people who have oddly voted in the past for a bully and a narcissist, but I'm not sure that I can. Now, you know, we were encouraged to work together when Trump was elected, and I wrote a song that, said at some point, working together would be a compromise, and compromise, circa Nazi Germany is complicity. You are an accomplice once you give in to too much. However, as a musician, I do what I can. I have been on a lot of these events, Zoom events, because I don't get out to perform. But when I did, I always spoke out for compassion, as I said, and love. But I'm gonna fly in the face of protocol here, and I'm gonna do a song. I'm not gonna do a song. I'm just gonna do a chorus of a song that was written by Spook Handy, that's out there on the internet, and I'll finish my little bit. It says, "Vote, don't you never mind the weather. Get your butt in the booth, pull down the lever. Vote, For worse or for better, let your voice be heard.
Great. And this is the message that we're really trying to bring home today, is to encourage to vote. I voted the very first day that I was able to vote in Maine. My wife and I walked 3 blocks to City Hall in Calais, Maine, got our absentee ballots, came down, sat at the kitchen table, filled them out, and brought them back that same day. And we're very fortunate to do that. But Heather, maybe you can jump in here too about what ways do you see that we as individuals can encourage people, to vote? Family members, friends, the community that we touch every day. Do you have any perspective on that?
Well, we all need to do everything we can think of doing. So it may be individual. Certainly for us, if you haven't voted yet, vote now. The earlier you vote, the easier it will be, because there may be a rush at the polls. And so we want to make it convenient. Vote now for family, for friends, for people who are elderly. For seniors like us, have our children voted, have our grandchildren voted, have their friends voted, have our friends voted. And some people may be concerned because of this pandemic and other comments going around. So it's encouraging people to vote early and make a plan for how you're going to vote. Are you going to drop off your ballot? Are you going to stand in line? And then you can also volunteer. That's probably the most important thing you can do now. In fact, press 1 on your phone now if you want to volunteer, or if you're on the link that you're already on. If you press 1, they will take you as a volunteer. And you can also go to my.maindems.org. We'll hear more about it. And that's another way you can volunteer. We need people on phone banks. We need people texting and calling neighbors and other friends. And for those
friends and family,
like some in person, and there'll be some opportunities to canvass.
A lot of times people, we have a family member who is a very beloved family member who had some misapprehensions about voting because she has a learning disability, and she didn't want to. She thought if she registered to vote that she was going to be called up for jury selection. And she's very shy, and she said she couldn't handle that. And we did a little research with her and realized that where she was living in Sanibel, Florida, that it didn't have any connection to your voting registration. She got all excited and signed up and hasn't ever voted, and she's in her 50s. So I think some of that, just one-on-one, sometimes just a human touch between people. Bowzer, do you have any suggestions about how that might run in terms of just getting down these last few days? I know my wife does with the Maine Dems. She 2 hours every Sunday makes phone calls and just checks in on people to see if they voted. We also have, in the state of Maine, we have ranked choice voting, which is interesting. But people wonder, well, what if I don't want to put Donald Trump down as my second choice anyway? And you don't have to. I didn't know that. Somebody asked me that. Like, if it's ranked choice, do you have to put other people down? That's a good question. And in Maine, you don't. But sometimes these little conversations about just what exactly does it take to vote? Where do you vote? To have a ride to the polls. And a ride to the polls isn't what it was in the old days because we're in a pandemic and you got to be careful about that. But nevertheless, it's all up for grabs. And sometimes just engaging another human being and someone who maybe isn't. We have a friend who we know voted for Donald Trump last time, and we heard her talking about how she was disappointed, and we got her some yard signs, some Biden yard signs, and she put them up. And we're in Washington County, Maine, in the heart of Trump country. And around here, every yard sign it's a big deal. So yeah, I think you have to think of those one vote at a time situations. Bowzer, you got any input on that?
Well, I couldn't agree with any of that more. At the end of the day, It all comes down to human beings. I mean, I'm often asked at this point, what am I hearing from seniors around the country about their concerns? And okay, I'm president of Social Security Works PAC. So we work on senior issues all day, every day. And, I could talk about those issues pretty well. And yes, number one concern right now among seniors, obviously, is the COVID response. Number two concern is fear of Social Security and Medicare. Donald Trump ran in 2016 saying, I'm a different kind of Republican. I'm not going to cut your Social Security and Medicare. And long before COVID happened, the first budget that was presented cut billions and billions of dollars out of Social Security and Medicare. So those things are all true. But you know what else you hear all the time? When am I going to be able to see my grandchildren?
Yeah. I've been saying that.
Right. This is the heart of the matter for a lot of people. So what that brings it back to is that how deeply personal all of this really is. And voting is related to that. If you can find 5, 10 people that if every one of us finds 5 or 10 people that we know and really approaches them about their plan to vote, who they're going to vote for, if they're persuadable. Don't waste a lot of time on people who are not persuadable. In fact, don't waste any.
Yeah, well, we actually, Bowzer, we have some statistics that say that older voters, one of the characteristics of older voters is they tend to be slightly more persuadable. And I think that's where an individual conversation, to pick up the phone, if you know something, I have to believe that there are quite a number of individuals who voted for Trump last time. We heard this in 2016. Well, what the heck? I didn't like Hillary. I thought we'd see what this guy can do. That crowd of people who are, at this point, not excited about Trump, and maybe they're going along with their peer group or whatever, but that's a person that I think that in a one-on-one conversation, like my friend who voted for Trump last time and wanted to get a Biden and a Sarah Gideon sign for her yard, that's where I think that's where in some cases you could say in 2016, that's where a lot of votes were lost, and this is where a lot of votes could be picked up in 2020. Yes, go ahead, Heather.
First of all, I'm very glad you mentioned Sarah Gideon, because we are for the presidency and for a Senate and voting up and down the ballot. So when you vote the full ballot, vote for the Senate too.
Yes.
And also you are exactly right. And I think John Bowzer, Bouman mentioned this before too, and that is that seniors used to be for about 20 years, a Republican base. But seniors have now become a Democratic base because of how this administration's been so reckless on this pandemic, and because of the threats on Social Security and Medicare, just as John's been describing. So that seniors are now 7% more likely to be Democratic, 57 to 40%, a real switch from previous days. But we've got to make sure that people feel safe and supported to come out to vote.
Well, and also, as you say, voting up and vote blue up and down the ballot. I happen to be. I don't talk about this a lot, but I'm a leukemia survivor, and we're a pretty rare, demographic. But for 13 years, I took 400 milligrams a day of a medication called Gleevec. When it started off in 2004, it cost, for 30 tablets, cost $6,000. By the time I got finished in 2017 and was cured of leukemia, which is, all I ever knew about leukemia is that's how they kill off characters on soap operas when the actor can't negotiate a better contract. That's what happened to Tony. Oh, he got leukemia, he's gone. But what I realized is by the time I got off the Gleevec after 13 years, it was a generic, and it cost $12,000 a month. $12,000 a month. So I did a little math on the back of the envelope, and I realized that it had probably cost $1.2, $1.3 million just for the medication. That meant prior to Obamacare, prior to the Affordable Care Act, I would have maxed out at $1 million, and never
And
mind
also, we've paid for much of the research that created those pharmaceuticals through our
that's right.
taxpayer dollars, and it probably only takes them a few cents to make each pill, and
Yeah.
they sell it for that kind of those
Exactly.
cents in other countries. But a Biden administration will lower the prices of medicine and ensure that we negotiate for lower prices.
Yeah, and the empathy, that's, yeah, go ahead, John.
Everyone needs to go to joebiden.com and look at Joe Biden's plan for older Americans. It is excellent. And one of the linchpins of it, Social Security expansion, Medicaid is as well, and Medicare expansion, but for the fight to lower drug prices, which 84% of respondents to a poll that we did at Social Security Works, 84% of Americans said they would rather vote for a candidate who will protect and expand Social Security, Medicare, but fight to lower drug prices. That is the number one, 84%. Now, you all know you can't get to that number with just Democrats. That is a vast majority of independents and a substantial number of Republicans. And Medicare needs to be able to negotiate with drug prices to get better prices. We have too many people in America and too many people in Maine who are having to decide between putting food on their table and taking medications that they need because they can't afford those medications. And there's no reason to have to go to Canada or another country or Europe to get better prices. Only the United States Congress and the White House stands in the way of Medicare being able to negotiate for lower drug prices.
And because of Trump's mishandling of the pandemic, I live 300 feet from the Canadian border and I can't get to Canada. I can't go over for a hamburger. So no, and the other thing that I think is really important about the flipping the Senate and keeping an eye on blue all the way along is that Joe Biden has a long, long history of reaching across the aisles. And one thing you don't hear people talking about very much, but if Trump goes down, as I'm quite sure he will and hope he will, the Republican Party is going to be in disarray, and they're going to be scrambling for a new identity. They're going to kind of be blown up by this because they've all gotten behind Trump, and now what? And I think it's a golden and I had a good conversation with Sarah Gideon about this. It's a golden opportunity to build coalitions and to have people say, now maybe we can all get together and support health care for everybody and do some of these things. And Joe Biden is in a wonderful position to do that because he understands how this stuff works. But it's also true that if we get the Senate, the Republicans are really going to be in a completely different position than they've been in for a long time. And there's an opportunity for coalitions and growth and change in a positive way in all these things, because the vast majority of Americans want it. And that's the key. It's to get that on the table. BJ, we have. Do you have some trivia stuff going on here today that people can weigh in on?
I sure do, and this conversation has outlined how important it is to vote. None of this stuff can happen if folks don't cast ballots. So we're going to go through some election voting trivia that folks can play along at home. We've got a series of questions, and they're all true false questions. And on your phone, you're gonna press 2 for true or 3 for false. So our first question is, you can register to vote on election day in Maine. If you're on the phone, press 2 for true or 3 for false. Okay, and the answer is true. You can register in person on election day. All of our folks tuning in on the live stream got that correct. One important thing to note is in Maine, you do not need photo ID to vote, to register to vote. Bring a piece of mail with your address on it. If you don't have a piece of mail with your address on it, you can cast a provisional ballot by swearing affidavit that you live where you live. But bring a piece of mail with you. If you're not registered to vote, you can register to vote on election day. Moving to our second question, true or false? If you mail your ballot back, it needs to be received by 8 p.m. on election day. If you mail your ballot back, it needs to be received by 8 p.m. on election day. Press 2 for true or 3 for false. And 100% of the folks on the phone said, or online said true, and that is correct. It does need to be received by 8 p.m. on election day. If you have an absentee ballot in your hand and you haven't mailed it yet, our recommendation is at this point you bring it to the town office. The post office has now said that they think that the point at which they could guarantee that ballots arrive by 8 p.m. on election day has passed. So please visit your town office. Many town offices have drop boxes. So please make a plan to personally deliver your absentee ballot in person. And that leads us to our next and final question. If you're submitting your ballot early, you need to sign the back of your the back of the envelope for your absentee ballot. Again, if you're submitting your ballot early, you need to sign the envelope of your absentee ballot. Press 2 for true or 3 for false. And we have 100% of the folks online true as well. That's correct. You do need to sign the back of your envelope. And this year, the Secretary of State has a great ballot tracking function where you can go to the Secretary of State's website and you can track the status of your ballot, so that if you forgot to sign the back of your ballot, you will see that it will have been rejected and you can remedy that issue. So be sure to sign the back of your envelope. So there you have it, folks. We're 3 for 3 on the phones.
Great.
You're all voting pros, so put it to use.
We got slick. We got smart people too.
Hey, BJ, can I ask you a question? How do we go online to find out whether our ballot has been cast?
That's right. So you'll go to the Secretary of State's website, and right on the website there's a button that says track my ballot, and you'll put in your address and everything, and it will show what the status of your ballot is.
So
awesome.
Is it mainstate.gov?
Next to it, maine.gov/SOS will get you to the right place.
Secretary of State, thank you. I know everybody's got to kind of crank up here. One thing, I want to thank everybody who's calling in, listening in, Zooming in. I also want to say one thing that I do every day is I go around town and I take any of the Biden, Gideon, the Democratic signs that have fallen over and I prop them back up again. And I do that. That's my little bit. But thank you very much, Heather Booth, Noel Paul Stookey, and John Bowzer Bouman from Shannon. You have a classic song that you finished up your shows with for years. Can you kind of take us out on a variation on that theme?
It's the 2020 theme song. You can all sing along at home. You'll catch on pretty quick. It used to be called Good Night, Sweetheart. Well, it's time to go. But just like Tim said, we kind of changed the words for 2020. Sing along. Dun, 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 dun. Good night, Donald Trump. Well, it's time to go. Dun, 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 dun. Good night, Donald Trump. Well, it's time to go. No, 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 no. Don't hate to leave you, but we really must say good night, Donald Trump. Good night. Dun, 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 dun. Good night, Donald Trump. Good night. And take Susan Collins with you. Good night, Donald Trump. Vote for Joe Biden.
Thanks, everybody.
Go Maine.
Thank you. Thanks for showing up, and go vote. And we're all in this together. Take care. And I'm going to stick around with BJ for a couple of minutes for everybody wants to click in online here, right? I think that's how we are.
That's right. Thanks, Tim. So before you go, we've got 3 things to ask you to do so we can say good night to Donald Trump.
Yeah.
The first is to sign up to volunteer at my.maindems.org. If you're on the phone, press 1 and somebody will follow up with you. 2, talk to your friends and families and make sure they have a plan to vote. And then finally, if you have a question or would like to leave us a comment and you're on the telephone, please stay on the line after the end of this call and wait for the prompt to speak. We'd love to hear from you. So volunteer, make a plan to vote, and let us know what you thought of the show. Thanks, Tim.
Thank you very much, BJ. Keep doing what you're doing. It seems to be working. Take care.